Hello, I'm Evan, and in this video we're going to review how the M3 has changed over 6 generations in terms of design and dimensions. The M3 is iconic for its performance and its amazing looks and other contributions that has made it a legend in motorsports. But essentially what we're going to do here in this particular video, most of you are probably either huge fans of the M3 or have seen so many videos of the history, so I'm going to touch upon that lightly. But essentially we're going to really narrow in on what makes these cars different from a looks perspective and how the car has gotten bigger over the years, yet more capable. We start with the E30. It's the track monster of its time. It was created to compete with the E190 Mercedes-Benz. BMW mandated its engineers of the motorsport division to come up with a car that could beat this on the track in manufacturing racing overseas, and essentially in order to compete they had to produce 5,000 cars. BMW wasn't even sure if they would actually sell them, but that's all history. Let's now get into why this car was so special, what BMW was thinking in terms of design. What makes this car stand out quite a bit to most people is actually what is called the 6 line, which extends from the C-pillar towards the rear wheel. It arches out and gives a wide body appearance. With M3 badging and an aggressive front air dam and a shallowed rake rear window that improved drag and channeled air onto a raised trunk lid and spoiler, this M3 was gorgeous and kicked off the first generation of altering a 3 Series for motorsport. Moving on to the E36, as this car moved into its second generation, it became bigger and more luxurious than the E30. This M3 was also launched to expand the reach of the M division. When you look at the car in general, you can see that it came in a wide variety of colors and options. The E36 was a wolf in sheep's clothing. It was more refined, it had cleaner lines and more of a 90s styling, which gave it some subtle features to make sure that you knew it was an M. For example, the side mirrors were elaborate to reduce air resistance. Also, the front and rear had special ground effects, so did the rear. There were side skirts and 17-inch wheels that gave this car a distinguishing look compared to a normal 3 Series. It's also heavier and it was slower at the track. It was more thought of as the sports car that you drove on weekends at the track rather than something that was purely motorsport. So we move on to the E46, which for many is considered the pinnacle of M3. It is known for its timeless design, outstanding proportions. At 3,415 pounds, 177 inches, and 70 inches wide, this coupe is immediately recognizable by its distinguishing features. For example, it has a striking front apron that ensures that water and oil remain at the right temperature through all engine power. Now, when you talk about the body, what's interesting about this M3 is that design came into its own here compared to the last generation, meaning that it has more lines to it. You can notice, for example, that the fenders are widened, that there's special side skirts, and that it is very aerodynamic in many ways across the lines of the body. It's a lip spoiler that actually does improve traction. The side vent grills was introduced on the E46 to inject more air into the braking system and also to cool the engine. Now, the funny thing about it is that these ducts turned out to be part of the original design, and then through testing they realized that they weren't necessary. They were providing a limited amount of value of cooling and adding performance, but they liked how much it looked, that it became a symbol, it became an iconic piece of the design in this generation M3 and all M3, M4s moving forward. The E90 and E92. This car measures at This car weighs 30,650 pounds, has a length of 182 inches, and is 72 inches wide. Known for its high revving V8 that went to 8,300 RPMs, the S65 brought a pronounced power dome to its hood. The car grew larger to support its engine, but yet 33 pounds lighter than the E46 in terms of the weight of the engine. The M3 was equipped with a carbon fiber roof that was standard for the first time. This high-strength, lightweight component was previously reserved for the CSL edition in the E46. Its muscular appearance and striking shape included bulging fenders in the front and rear to accommodate 245s in the front and 265s in the rear. A quad-tip exhaust and inlets sculpted into the bottom of the bumper show the sophistications that evolved into this design. F80 and F82 was the first time that BMW split the M series cars. The M4 became the coupe, and the M3, of course, the sedan. Known for having its S55 twin-turbocharged dual-scroll engine, it was the first time that forced induction was part of the M3 engine. It grew larger at 184 inches, 2 inches longer than the E90 and E92. Weight, 3,650 pounds, almost identical to the prior generation, and at 74 inches wide, it became 2 inches wider. What is particularly distinctive, three-dimensional design that is incorporated into all body parts of the F80 series. It is emotional and striking. The head of design at the time, Karim Habib, made it his goal to express high performance and impressive handling on all new models. Particularly, the F80 has very pronounced features. The front apron has cues and aerodynamics that make it look muscular. The design took cues from the E46, in particular the power dome and the side vents. The front fender is arched, and the wheel arch panel and quarter panel combine elegantly to produce wide hips. So if you're a traditionalist, you definitely do not like the G80. The G80, the newest generation M3, M4, G82, represent a very stark change in many facets, which I will get into right now. G80 and G82 is the most polarizing M produced. The reasons are quite obvious, but let's get into them. Starting at the fact that this car just keeps getting larger and heavier than prior generations. From a length standpoint, it is 189 inches, 4.6 inches longer than the F80, F82. From a weight standpoint, it is now 3,745 pounds, 96 pounds heavier than the prior M3 competition. And from a width standpoint, it's pretty parallel at 74 inches. Truthfully, I don't know how much wider they can make the M3. I actually own an F80 and it's pretty wide. So, now let's get into the main part of the conversation, the grille. BMW decided to break free of its kidney grills from all the other generations. Let me give you what the head of design actually said about the car right here.
As we use anyway the whole front end as a soft nose, we used really the whole tool to express, and the first time we have a very distinctive kidney shape on an M car. Yeah, so we gave an M car a completely different look than the base car. And we got rid also of the chrome element, because we think also the chrome is not really performance orientated, it's more like jewelry. And of course the horizontal bars, which are always normally in a vertical shape, but here we gave it a completely different look to really underline the distinctive character of the M4.
And we optimize the cooling air intake, right?
Of
By
course.
increasing the diameter.
Yeah.
like a racing engineer would do it.
Exactly. And then on the bottom, I mean, what is always on an M car, it's the angle of the air intake, which is opening to the bottom. Normally we have a 3-hole air intake. We have it still, more functional this time, but the bottom air intake is nicely supporting the kidney, because the kidney is the dominant element in the front. Yeah?
Besides the front being so polarizing, the car itself is a good looker. It keeps quite a few of the cues from prior generations. You still have the side vents. You still have very aerodynamic styling. You still have rear flared fenders. And it definitely takes the 3 Series and refines it to its own design, which is what the M3 has been doing generation after generation. It did lose its pronounced dome on the hood this time around, and the mirrors are less unique in their design than usual. And the car really did focus in design terms on being less three-dimensional and more refined and sharp in certain places. And generally, you know, it retains the carbon fiber roof. It totally looks the part in terms of being an M car with its aggressive design and distinctive cues. So what does the future hold for the M car? I have my opinions, which I will share, but I'd love to hear yours in the comments. The 7th generation will probably move into the later part of this decade, somewhere around 2026 or 2027. So it'll be an interesting time for BMW to continue with developing internal combustion and produce an entirely new engine, or, I hate to say it, maybe move to electric. So that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it.